what was Freddie Mercury like in bed? And I was like, I don't know. There were 7 other people there. Simple. I remember on my 27th birthday, I remember saying to my mum, I don't want to live beyond 27. And my mum was like, why? And I was just like, I just thought 27 was like kind of the end of the road type thing. And my mum was like, don't be so stupid. 27 is one of the best years of your life. Temazepam, diazepam, rohypnol, they were kind of like the pegging parts of the cocaine. So I would take cocaine, I would take downers to suppress the cocaine. I would drink alcohol to level the cocaine. And then I would take more. And then, of course, I discovered freebasing and crack. And then I discovered crystal meth. When I finally went to it, I would sleep in the recovery position because I was that scared that I was going to choke on my own vomit every night. Music is the best and biggest drug I've ever taken. It has the ability to transport you to anywhere in the world and to be with people that are no longer with us.
DJ Fat Tony in the building. How are you, man?
I'm okay. I'm good. I've been, I'm not sure right today. I've been ill for the last few weeks, but I'm okay. I'm good now.
You had the Rona?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I kind of was like, I went for a whole week of thinking, oh, this is all right. I can do this. It was kind of a mild flu, bad chest. But I was wise enough to ask my doctor decided he wanted to put me on steroids for my chest because I have a bad chest anyway. So thankfully I took the steroids. Then it went away on the Thursday, and I thought, I feel really good. Friday night, boom, temperature 40 in the 40s for 4 days and 4 nights. The worst fever. It went into my chest. I was breathless. It was awful. Yeah, it was really awful.
That's harsh. Feeling good now?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm just taking it easy. Do you get what I mean? I'm in no rush to go anywhere, so it's not a problem. But yeah, thank God I had it mild. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. So my first question is why are you called Fat Tony when you're not fat?
That old question. When I was a kid, I was a fat kid. I got fat about the age of 14 to 16. It was a coping mechanism for what I was going through. So I kind of, put on loads of weight as if, it's a barrier between other people and me, because I kind of went through a lot of it. There was sexual abuse at an earlier age. So I kind of just got fat as a protection. So, it was one of those names that people kind of whispered behind your back. So I just kept it. I lost my weight at 16 and that was it.
It's interesting that 2 years of being fat, ages ago, has branded you for the rest of your life.
It's one of those things people go, oh, you should change your name. And it's like, why would I change my name? It's taken me around the world 7 times. Do you know what I mean? I made a career out of that name. I'm not going to change it. I think there was a year and a half in the 80s where I changed it to Fat, PHT, PHAT.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I went all hip hop for a week. But no.
Yeah. So I first heard of you, as some of the people listening may have done, through this recent Mixmag documentary which has come out, which is absolutely phenomenal. And I know, have
you been living under a stone in Newcastle?
Look,
with no Wi-Fi.
There is. we are currently in the 1800s, and we're hoping to get the wheel and fire and operating running water soon. Right. But I mean, in my defence, they referred to you. This is Mixmag referred to you as the most famous DJ you've never heard of.
Yeah, the reason that name came about was because Seb, who works for Mixmag, he'd never heard of me, and he was from Cornwall. So, and I actually said to him at the time, the reason you've not heard of me is because you're from Cornwall. You live under a stone in like a wooden shack. You know what I mean? You probably haven't even got a smartphone. But yeah, so that's why we called it that, because I really like that. I like the fact that people hadn't heard of me. Because in my world, everybody's heard of me.
Well, it doesn't surprise me at all. But I think to touch on the way that industries work, especially nightlife, right? People, especially from outside of the country, might look at the UK and just be like, "Oh my God, it's just a speck. It's a state in America, right?" But especially with partying, because party culture is so big in the UK, you can go from here to Middlesbrough, where I'm originally from, 45 miles away. And the industry's different, the music policies are different, the type of events are different, the promoters, there's no crossover. So the little microcosms, they don't surprise me.
Yeah, so I mean, come on, I don't expect everybody to know who I am, because, the industry, but the thing about it was because you know, my career shifted in so many different areas throughout my career. And right now, the last few years, I've been working within fashion and all of that stuff. So, you know, I kind of, the clubs, I got to this level where the clubs, I would still do clubs. They don't pay the money that I could get from, that I can command for doing, you know, working for Victoria Beckham or Versace or any of those brands I work with. So, you know, the whole idea of calling it the most famous DJ I've never heard of was because, you know, it was about tapping back into that other market that I hadn't been a part of for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like everyone that's listening will know the local DJ that has a couple of residencies a week, or maybe, you know, 3-4 residencies a week at good events. And it looks great, but it's a fucking grind, you know? Like all my buddies that are resident DJs working 3 or 4 nights a week, finishing 4 in the morning, you know, grinding it out. It's hard work.
But, you know, I've done that for a lifetime. Do you get what I mean? And now I've got to this level of contentment within my career that I've learned that there's a really beautiful thing about saying no. And it's a really powerful thing to say no without explanation. I don't need to explain why I'm saying no anymore. And I turn down so many different types of gigs because they're not where I want to be right now. I don't need to be getting up at 5 in the morning to go to work. Do you get what I mean? Don't get me wrong. That's really not me being obnoxious or taking it for granted for what I got. But you know what? I kind of, you know, I'd rather do bigger than smaller on some levels. Don't get me wrong. I do so many different types of parties and events. And if they appeal to me, I'll do them. It doesn't matter how much money it is or whatever. But, you know, just got to that stage where I don't really do residencies anymore, because I find that when you become a resident, you become a piece of furniture and you get treated like furniture. You know, the special, the whole feeling of being special and different is gone because you're suddenly there every week. So people take you for granted. There's no amazement about it. Do you get what I mean?
I couldn't agree more.
You just go there and people go, oh, he's there again. Yeah, I heard him last week.
Well, it's like the bar staff. You know, you're just one of the bar staff, one of the glass collectors.
Yeah, totally. And for me, I don't want to be that anymore.
I can totally get that. There's a cool quote that I heard the other day about saying no. And it was that by saying no, you're only saying no to one thing. By saying yes, you are saying no to everything else. Because
you know what I learned, Chris, is like that. I will say yes to something that I don't want to do, and then I will get so much anxiety around that one thing. That one thing will keep me awake for 3 or 4 nights. I will fret and you know, I will work myself up to this place, right? And then what I'll do is the day before I'll pull a sickie, or on the day. Do you know what I mean? And I just think,
then you feel guilty. After you felt anxious, now you feel guilty.
You feel like you've let yourself down, you're letting other people down. So there's something really simple, you know. As an addict, I people pleased quite a lot throughout my life. And I don't need to do that today. Today, I need to please one person, that's myself. And if I'm happy, everybody else is happy.
Man, that's so much more holistic.
But you know, and with the film, you know, with that Mixed Mag film, I really thought no one was ever going to watch it. I you know, it started off as an interview for Mixed Mag. And in the interview, I said, oh, you know, it's only taken you 35 years to catch up. And, you know, because everyone they've had on the majority of people they've had on their covers in that 35 years are probably stacking shelves right now. Do you get what I mean? And whereas I've continued through and, you know, and then the boys at Mixed Mag, the interview came out, it got a really big, really great reception. And then they said, oh, we really want to do an online thing with you the next day. I was like, yeah, fine, let's do it. So we went off and did it. And then 2 days later, they came back and they were like, oh, you know what? We want to do something bigger. And I was like, fine. You know, I really like the guys, Seb and Louis. They were great. They were really good fun to work with. You know, I kind of just like their cheekiness, you know, because each day they'd do an interview with me and then they'd throw these questions in at the end. Like on one day, Seb kind of, we'd finished filming and then Seb was like, oh, just one last question. And I was like, what? And he'd be like, what was Freddie Mercury like in bed? And I was like, I don't know. There was 7 other people there. You know, simple little banter like that. And that's kind of just like the magic of what the film came out like. You know, they brought it to my house to show me. And I was, you know, and I kind of was like, oh, I don't know if I want to watch it. Because you know, it's the thing about it is it's the truth and the truth hurts. So it's really hard sometimes to watch the truth in black and white or on screen or read it. And they showed me, and it made me cry. Each time I watch it, there's parts in it that make me cry because it really hits a nerve. And they showed me the film, and they were like, I started to cry, and they were like, "Did you like it?" And I was like, "Yeah." They were like, "Is there anything you want to change?" And I was like, "Probably 95% of it, but but it's your film, and you know what? I respect it's your film, and you know what? No, I don't want to change it. I didn't want to change anything, apart from the end. I wanted them to big me up a little bit more in the
what he's doing now type thing.
Yeah, because they kind of just put a few things in. I was like, no, you might as well stick it all in. And then I was like, actually, no, don't stick it all in. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't need to all be there. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of one of those. So we just left it as it was. And you know what? It's had nearly 3 million views.
It's insane. It's
3 million.
Phenomenal.
It's mental, man.
It's so good. So again, if you haven't seen it, it'll be linked in the show notes below. So once we've finished, once you finish listening to the podcast, go and check it out. It is absolutely amazing. It's like one of the first long form Facebook videos I've seen with like a couple of million views as well. So, just unbelievable. So
I mean, the blew me away.
The bottom line is that your story resonates with a lot of people. It's interesting and intriguing to a lot of people. So I want to give you an opportunity to kind of delve into that and obviously show people that haven't seen it what that story is, and then go further with it as well. So where do we start with your career?
Where do you want to start with my career?
At the beginning, yes.
Well, please. I used to work on the door of a nightclub. I started going out at a really young age. I started going out at the age of 14 to nightclubs. Got kicked out of school at 14. Went to work in a place in Kings Road, which is in Chelsea, which at that time people walked up and down all day long on Saturdays. It was like social media. So the likes of where I met Boy George, most of my friends would be walking up and down that road because punk had just come from Kings Road, Chelsea. So it was the next best thing, the next biggest thing. So the photographers would always be there. It was like kind of a place to go and be photographed. So I got a job working there, and then we started hanging out met all my friends. Made new friends. Obviously, it made a whole new circle of friends, and we started going out clubbing. And I had a mouth. I could get what I wanted. I was the most obnoxious person you'll ever meet. And, I was always in somebody's face. So people just gave me what I wanted. And so I had this job on this door of a club called the Lyceum, where Lion King's playing at presently in London. It's a big theatre. And I was working on that door, and each week I would moan about the music for no reason. No reason at all, just moaned about it. And the guy, Rusty, who run the club, said to me, "Oh, if you can do better, bring your own tracks." And that was it. I kind of went with 4 records the next week. And within a month, I was in New York playing.
How old were you at this point?
I was, at that point, I was 16. Yeah, 16, going on 17, yeah. And literally, that was it. 3 weeks down the line, I'd started a new night on a Tuesday with my friend Stephen Linnard, a club called the WAG Club. And we did a night called Total Fashion Victim, and it kind of just spiraled from there. I kind of within a month and a half, I had a residency in New York at the Palladium, and it's kind of just all went.
So that first period there, from some fella on the door, some lad on the door of a venue, to being a guy with 4 records, to having a residency in New York.
Yeah,
that's the lift off, I think, that's probably most dramatic, right? Like if you actually look at it.
Kind of it was insane, London was a much different place back then. It had a nucleus of the way, which was the West End, which is Soho. And that was it. So that was the clubbing mecca area. So everybody knew each other. London was a really exciting, creative time. We didn't have social media. So everybody went out, and going out was where you met people. And, so everybody knew each other, and everyone at that point, London was like the place to be. Everyone in New York wanted to be in London, and everyone and all the clubs in New York wanted people from London. So it just kind of all fell into place. And it literally happened so quickly. It's just like literally mad.
So you got flown to New York by who?
I go to New York every 2 weeks.
By who?
by Steve Rubell, who used to own Studio 54. He went, they got rid of 54, and then they opened this new super club called Palladium. And you had Schrager owned like area, this other club down the road, and all of those clubs. So I kind of got in with all that lot. It was kind of really mad, yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. What's it feel like as a 16-year-old flying to New York to play records, having been a DJ for a month?
It was kind of actually I was about 17, because I remember I went to New York for my birthday, my 18th, on Concord, and then I got a taste of Concord, and then I stopped doing the Palladium for a few months, and then they wanted me back, and I said, I'm only coming if you fly me on Concord, and they actually flew me on Concord, and I was just like thinking, oh my God, you bunch of wankers. Like, you know what I mean? But it was kind of just, you know what, it was kind of just, that's what it was like in those days. You know, suddenly we didn't have superstar DJs before that. Do you get what I mean? And it was kind of just, It was all about being in the right place at the right time with the biggest mouth.
Well, you were positioned based on the brand that London had. You were given an unfair advantage there, right? You had competitive advantage because you were the British DJ that's come over, and you know they can. You don't have. There's no fact checking, right? You can't go on your SoundCloud and say, actually, you shit and 12.
Of course not. They didn't give a shit, because, you know, all they wanted was the word London, and they wanted the name of the WAG Club or any of the other venues that I played at. So kind of that's how it was. You know, you had nothing to fall back on apart from your last set. Do you get what I mean? And I kind of, yeah, it was mad.
So what were you playing?
I was playing early house. Yeah, house. It kind of started off with things like Luther Vandross and you know, Chaka Khan and all of that stuff that was out at that time, and then kind of progressed slowly into, we'd play old disco, and then from old disco it went into early house, the early, you know, Chicago stuff.
What year are we talking here?
I should know this stuff. I'm writing a book. We're talking. So I was 18, so I'm 55 now this year. So work it out yourself.
55 to 20. 70. Okay, so you're talking like late 80s, early 90s, I guess.
Yeah, early 90s.
Like, so I mean, you know, for the people listening that are househeads, you know, that love Defected and good, like quality modern house brands. Yeah. That is seen as one of the glory periods, right, for the development of house.
You know, it totally was. You know, I used to go to Sound Factory. I used to go to Paradise Garage. I was, you know, a regular at that garage, and you know, I had an amazing time. You know, and it's like I was the first one. Me and my friend Steve Swindles were the first person ever to bring Frankie Knuckles to London to get him to play. So we brought him over, and he played with us at this club called Jungle, which we did on a Monday. Yeah, so kind of, but you know, there was none of that whole, my God, we got this person, we've got that person at that point in time. That come a few years later when everything suddenly got a lot bigger. Do you get what I mean? At that point, we had Larry Levan, who was classed as a superstar DJ because he played at Paradise Garage, you know. But it kind of, as you got to meet these people, you realize that they weren't superstars. They were just people having fun, taking a lot of drugs and having a really good time.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? Like myself.
Yeah.
You know, unlike most of those people, I didn't know when to stop.
Okay, so we've touched on one of the defining characteristics, I suppose, of your early DJing career.
Yeah.
What can you remember your first drug?
My first drug. Yeah, it was my first drug I ever took was cocaine, poppers. I used to do poppers before that, you know, amyl nitrate.
Yeah.
And then I moved on. I didn't even smoke at that point. I didn't smoke until I was 21. And then I remember the first time I ever took cocaine, I hated it. I actually hated the feeling. It made me feel really paranoid. And I thought, I'm never doing that again. And then one night I was outside heaven, which is in the movie, I tell you, in the film, that I met with a gang of guys going into heaven, and one of them happened to be Freddie Mercury, and hung out with that lot. And then we all went back to their house in Holland Park, and someone offered me cocaine. Freddie offered me a line of cocaine, and I was like, "Oh, I don't do it. I don't like it." And of course, did it straight away. And that was kind of it. That was my drug of choice. And, I didn't do it for a little while. I remember I didn't do it for about 6-7 months. I didn't go near it again. And then it was a real major heroin vibe thing going on in London. Majority of people in London and on the club scene were really big smackheads. And so I was kind of anti that anyway, because all my friends were taking that. So, it was inevitable that I was going to end up being a junkie, It's in my blood.
Yeah, I get it. So cocaine obviously is a good drug for people that are partying a lot. And how often were you going out? Was it 7 nights a week? Was life and partying just one big sort of mesh?
Well, I mean, I kind of suddenly, I had no goals. I wasn't one of these people that thought, right, okay, in a year's time I want to be this, and then I want to go on to progress to that. I never had that. I was always, I always have been in the moment, and I kind of just, I'd arrived. Clubbing was my life. Clubbing was everything. Suddenly, I'd gone from being this inverted, kind of shy, hiding behind my fat, hiding behind things, to actually discovering who I was. And, so clubbing it became my life. It became a job. It became everything, So I was out 7 nights a week, and, slowly but surely, out those 7 nights, it would be 3 or 4 nights that I'd do drugs. And then it would be 5 or 6 nights that I did drugs, It was never ever a problem. I never had a drug for the first 12 years. It wasn't a problem.
So until 28 sort of age?
Yeah, 27. It became a problem. I remember on my 27th birthday, I remember saying to my mum, I don't want to live beyond 27. And my mum was like, why? And I was just like, I just thought 27 was like kind of the end of the road type thing. And my mum was like, don't be so stupid. 27 is one of the best years of your life. And I was just like, no. And of course, when I got to 28, I was gutted. For some reason, I was gutted that I didn't die when I was 27. Like that, I gave it a good fucking shot, I can assure you. And that's kind of when it all kind of just like the drug taking, the drug use become abuse. It went from use to abuse. And I started abusing drugs. I started, I'd be up for 4 or 5 nights on the trot,
So talking about the years before drug use became abuse.
Yeah.
What was a typical week like? Talk me through a typical week.
So I would go out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night. I would literally, at that point in time, I was still living in Battersea, which is where my mum and dad lived, which is just over the river, which is central London. So it was, I had it, everything took 10 minutes, 20 minutes to get into Soho from my house. It's like, so I kind of I would be out, and because I was living at home, I didn't ever wanted to go home. I had all these illegal drinking clubs in Soho. So you would go to these illegal drinking clubs, like 79 one was called. And we had a club called the Pink Panther, which was a gay 24-hour illegal drinking club. And you'd go about 3 a.m, and by 6 a.m. it would have been raided by the police. And you'd go out and you'd walk around the block and you'd go back in. And kind of that added to it. Everything was just like, the thrill of the police raiding something. And, so that would be like Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. Then Thursday, Friday.
You're not DJing through the week, early on in the week? You're not
I DJ on Tuesday. I was running my own night on Tuesday at the WAG Club at that point in time. And then I was running Saturday nights at WAG Club as well. And at the time, the WAG Club was like the place to go. I mean, there would be a queue around, like a 3-hour waiting to get in, like on a Saturday night. And we basically were on the door off our nuts saying, no, you can't come in. You can come in. We're just getting whatever we wanted.
You're a cunt, and you're a cunt, and you're a cunt.
Yeah, totally like that.
Yeah.
And we'd say, sorry, you can't come in, you're off your nut.
Coming like, from, pottle calling cat.
Totally. and taking cat.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a pretty... so that was Saturdays. And then what happened was a new club opened called the Limelight, which was opened in a big church. And in the 80s, it was like the place, the late 80s, early 90s, the place to go. And they basically brought me in. Yet again, I met with the owner, a guy called Peter Gation. And they had these clubs all over. They had one in New York, which was the place to go. They had one in Atlanta. And they wanted to open this one in London. It was on Shaftesbury Avenue in a disused church. And I remember having a meeting and saying, you need to employ me. And they were like, why? And I said, because if you don't, I'll just annihilate your club. And just like, the bullshit that would come out of my mouth. And these guys were like, yeah. So they employed me. And within a month of working for them, before it even opened, I'd become like the musical director of the Limelight. And I was like on a retainer of ridiculous amounts of money. And it was at that point, I had suddenly had all this money. I had my own office. I just turned 18. I was kind of like just running so many different things and little projects and scams going on in London. And, it kind of just, I got swept away with it. I felt that I had to be there every night. I had to take more drugs than everybody else. And it kind of just, that kind of just become who I was. It was fucking awful.
Speaking as someone who started club promotion in 2006, which is early by today's standards, but late by yours. And me and my business partners started running events, and I've got a very similar story without the hectic drug use and the celebrities and Boy George and stuff like that, unless you count Geordie Shore. And
no, you don't.
No, you don't. Okay.
Unless you're in rehab.
Yeah. But I understand, and I can speak from personal experience about what it's like to be a young guy who finds himself having never been in a position of authority or being renowned, potentially not being liked by people or having people need you. And that sense very quickly can become your identity, and you can wrap yourself around it. And what I found, slightly different to yours, me and my business partner started associating, or at least me, not Darren. He was a lot more stable than me. He's got 2 kids now. He's completely unstable now. He's got 2 kids and 2 dogs. It's impossible for him.
Out to pasture.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. What I did was I started associating my sense of self-worth and well-being with the success of the business.
Of course you do. Yeah.
It seems like with you, perhaps it was to do with the depth of the partying, to do with the level of renown.
It became more about ego, and the ego got so big because, people were blowing smoke up my ass. I couldn't do no wrong. I was having 2 nights a week, running 2 nights a week at the Limelight with my name on. My name was everywhere. I'd suddenly gone from being this fat, obnoxious kid to being in the Sunday papers. I was suddenly in supplements. I was suddenly doing interviews for things. And it just kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I kind of, in those days, fashion had just come into play again. I was like head showing Jean-Paul Gaultier. I was wearing, everybody wanted me to wear their clothes. It was insane. And, of course, you give something, that stuff to an 18-year-old. They don't know what to do with it.
It's going to lap it up, aren't they? Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, it's like a fucking pig in shit. Seriously. I had no tools to deal with that. Do you know what I mean? I kind of just, the only way I could deal with it was by taking loads of drugs and riding it.
How did the drugs help?
Well, the drugs kind of led me into this false sense of, okay, they fed the ego. They fed the ego. They kind of took away the fear. The fear of being found out. I've always suffered from imposter syndrome, and I always had that fear of, oh my God, I'm going to get found out here, and kind of, the enjoyment of what I actually started off by doing, by DJing, I kind of always, when I look back on it, I always think because it was never a chosen job and it was never a chosen path, I think that's why I kind of tried to destroy it so much. Do you get what I mean? It's kind of was like, it wasn't something that I studied to do. I didn't set out to be that. I just kind of was just like, okay, this is what I've fallen into.
I think certainly
George says it quite nicely in the film that when everybody else was off brand building, I was off partying. Everyone else was building a name for themselves. I was off just building parties. Do you know what I mean? And because I always had that fear of I always had a fear of success. It's really weird. The bigger I got, the more destructive I got. So, and I've always been like that. I'm still like it today, but today I kind of have it capped and I work a program around it. But, so there'll be areas where something in my career is going like this, and then I'll be over here pouring paraffin on something to create a smoke screen so that you can't really see who I am. Because it's a weird one. And, at that point in time, I got success was given to me on such a massive scale. I mean, you know, I was doing TV stuff. I had a show on Kiss. I was doing, it was all there. It was all there. Yeah, and you know, and of course, my mouth, the way I was, destroyed that. Do you get what I mean? I would remember Janet Streetport at that point was like head of BBC TV for youth, and she gave me like this job. She'd lined up all this presenting stuff for me, and she, as a part of the build up to it, I'd have to go and outside concerts and Vox Pop, where you stand outside concerts and say, hey, why have you come to see so and so, you know, all that rubbish. And I couldn't speak. I'd be so coked off my nut. I couldn't speak, and she'd come and take the mic off me and then like just send me home. And you know, there was so many of those golden opportunities that I always thought, doesn't matter, I'll get it again. Do you get what I mean? It's kind of the ego had taken over.
I suppose what the drugs do is they stop you from being able to ask or do that introspection. They don't allow you to ask those questions because they create a buffer between what you see inside and how you feel. And it means that you don't ever have to worry about, well, hang on, maybe I should feel anxious, upset, regretful, whatever about Janet Street Porter just saying that I blew it again, or this not happening, or that not happening, or whatever. And obviously, you know, drugs are a pretty surefire way to stop you from ever having to feel feelings.
Totally, it changes the way I felt. Like all drugs, you know, I would take drugs to change the way I felt because I was never happy within who I was. You know, I never got to that point where I just think, oh, you know what, your shit stinks. Shit does. I never ever got that feeling. I always had to counteract the way I was feeling by taking those drugs or drinking on it, because I always felt less than. I never felt that I deserved the success that I had because it wasn't a chosen success. I never felt that I deserved to be where I was because it wasn't something I set out to do. It was something I fell on. Do you get what I mean? So therefore, I kind of like cuckooed everybody else's nests, you know. And it was kind of weird, you know, with that drug of choice, that cocaine, it's kind of like, there's a really famous line that Mark Harmon once said was that cocaine will get you ready for the party, but it won't take you to the party. You know, so you'll spend 16 hours getting ready at home and you won't leave the flat. And it's true, you know, I saw what it was like for me. Yeah.
Was there never a concern with money? Like, I know you were getting paid a lot, but it sounds like you were sniffing even more.
Never. I you know, I'd got myself to this position where I was getting paid. You know, you got to remember at that point in time, we all become superstars. After that, the Oakenfolds, my whole circle of friends, if you go back and look at all those slides, there was Danny Rampling, there was myself, Paul Oakenfold, Sasha, all of these DJs suddenly became the biggest superstars, and I would be traveling up the motorway, down the motorway, playing all over the place for vast amounts of money, you know. And of course, I was on this massive retainer from the Limelight and the likes of that, so it always went upwards. Do you get what I mean? And then suddenly, you know, I was getting record deals. I bought a house in centre of London, which was incredible. It's called the Cottage on Queen Square, very apt. And you know, I had this wealth, you know. I had so much money. And
you couldn't sniff, you weren't sniffing enough to make a dent in that?
I was sniffing enough to make a considerable dent in it, but it always kept coming. So whatever I spent, I knew I was getting again. It was always like, you know, I remember that house that I talked to, you know, when I left that house, I got thrown out of that, lost that house. And the day that I left with one mirror, and which was the mirror I used to chop lines on. Left everything else there, just the TV, everything. And everyone was like, well, why are you not taking stuff with you? I was like, it's fine, I'll get it again. Do you know what I mean? And it kind of was always that throwaway lifestyle that kind of just brought me to my knees in the end.
Yeah, very, very blasé. Again, it's weird, right? Because only with the benefit of hindsight do we look at that version of Tony with sympathy, right? Because at the time, it must have been, this guy's got it all sorted. Like, he's got so much. He's getting free drugs. He's basically getting paid for being a dickhead. Like, he's getting, you know, and
totally.
It's what I think we need to see, or people need to try and look with a little bit more nuance at young success. You know, you've got DJs like Avicii. I'm friends with tons and tons of DJs that are...
Bless Avicii. You know, Avicii, you know, another one. Do you know what I mean? Just couldn't cope with success, couldn't cope with the idiots. Because what happens is when we get to that place, we're not on our own. We've got 30 other dickheads with us. And those other 30 dickheads are telling you what you want to hear. They're filling you up. You know, what happens is, you know, you suddenly realize that you're the party. And when you get to that place where you think you're the party, everybody else thinks you're the party. So, you know, they fuel what your beliefs are. And because you're a way and means for them to get more. And, you know, the realization is the day that you get clean is the day that you realize you're not the party. Do you get what I mean? And you know, with people like Avicii, and they don't stand a chance. They didn't stand a chance. Do you get what I mean? It was there.
And you know, it's difficult. It's hard to say to people, you should feel sorry for this young superstar who's worth all this money, who's got all these record deals.
Those people around him, they didn't want it around him. But, you know, the yes people that are pulling the strings behind them, that are supplying him with drugs. And the day that I remember speaking to him, and he wanted to get clean, and, you know, he started coming to meetings with us and stuff like that. And, you know, the powers that be behind that didn't want that.
Man, that's
people
so
don't
sad.
want that.
So sad.
Because they can't control you. They can no longer control you. You know, it's Amy all written all over again. You know, everybody pretends that they don't want you to be in that position, but you're in that position because they can control you in that position. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. I would stop traveling. I wouldn't fly anywhere, unless I knew there was going to be what I wanted at the other end. And I remember one trip I had to go to Hong Kong, and it was a big money job, and I was like, I'm not going. And I remember getting to the airport, and my manager was like, "You got to get on the plane." And I was like, "I'm not fucking going nowhere." You know what I mean? I'd been up for 3 nights. I mean, I stank as well. And it was like, you've got to get on that plane. I was like, I'm not going. And he literally made a phone call, a fake fucking phone call to this guy. And he got this guy saying, yeah, I'll meet you off the airplane. I've got an 8 for you. And I was talking to this guy, and I was like, okay, great. I got on the plane. The guy didn't even exist. It was one of his mates. So I end up in Hong Kong, and I was there for 5 days, and I couldn't get my drug of choice, and all I could get was ease. So I remember doing a fucking untold ease.
Hong Kong ease in the 90s must have been absolute rocket fuel, yeah.
Fucking mental. And you know, and I ended up, I set fire to the hotel room, I woke up. I was smoking in my hotel room and set fire to the bed. And I woke up in hospital covered in iodine, bright orange iodine. They'd covered me from head to toe. I was like, where am I? And it's like, and I tried to blame it on the light bulbs. I was like, no, it must have been the light bulbs around the mirror. And I was like fucking smoking in bed. But I literally so off my nut on ease. And after that, I was kind of just thought, I'm not doing this again. Do you know what I mean? I'm not flying anywhere. And I would get to the airport and just decide, no, I'm going back to the dealer's house. So I've become a loose cannon. So people just stop booking me, stop flying me out to places, which for somebody like me at that point in time was great, because I just thought, I ain't got to go anywhere. Good, because I can still earn that money here.
And you wanted the familiar mentalness of home, not the unfamiliar mentalness of abroad.
You know, I had a triangle towards the end, which I always explain to people when I meet them. You know, there was a triangle of addiction. It was, you know, I would leave my house. I would go to the dealers. I would stay at the dealers. I would leave the dealers, go to work, go back to my house for 2 days, then go back to the dealers. That was the triangle. And then it was also alcohol, cocaine, cock, alcohol, cocaine. That was it. That was the 3. I could never do one without the other 2. And it was the same as my pattern. You know, traveling or going out of my comfort zone, and then not towards the end. It had to be set in stone. I needed to know where I was going, and I needed to know that I was going to get what I wanted.
Isn't it interesting that you're out of control in some regards, but completely overly controlling of your own life in other regards?
You know, I would say it's my shit, but, you know, my life was shit, but it was my shit. And it was like, you know, I could control the little that I had to control. And that's all I needed to control. Anything beyond that, going to the airport, checking in, getting on a plane, fuck that. Why do I need to do that? Do you know what I mean? I'll just sell that, or that house can go, or this can go, that can go. And that was always a much easier option And I think towards the end of my using, I was only happy when I had no money because I knew I couldn't use. It would be a Wednesday and I couldn't even afford a packet of cigarettes. But I knew Thursday I'd be working again. Do you get what I mean? So for that Wednesday, there would be some ease in this disease that enabled me to sleep all right and just think, okay, I might say I don't need to leave the house today.
So you said that your drug of choice was cocaine. Was that pretty much predominantly what it was? Or
no. That was the drug of choice. The drug of any other drug that I got my hands on. I used temazepam, diazepam, rohypnol. They were kind of like the pegging parts of the cocaine. So I would take cocaine, I would take downers to suppress the cocaine. I would drink alcohol to level the cocaine, and then I would take more. And then, of course, I discovered freebasing and crack, and then I discovered crystal meth. And, it's just the natural progression. So anyone, it was a natural progression. Suddenly there'd be a new drug and someone, you need to try this, and I'd be like, oh, I don't like it, and then boom, Bob's your uncle. I'm on that for 2 years. Do you get what I mean? It was kind of like anything that could take me somewhere else, than being in here and being in here.
Was there anything that was too much for you? Anything that was too strong, or that you said you didn't want to do?
Crystal meth, the first time I did crystal meth, I just thought I'm never, ever touching that again. The come down was so bad. I remember sitting on Vauxhall Bridge, wanting to throw myself in, because I lived right by it at that point. And I was like sitting there, and it was raining. And I remember just sitting there thinking, I can't do this anymore. And then I thought, oh, fuck, I ain't got any cigarettes. And I went, all right. So I went home to get my cigarettes. And of course, once I got home, I sat and had a cigarette. I thought, I'm not going back out again. But, it was like if it had been 2 more minutes on that bridge, I probably would have jumped in, because the come down was so severe. And I thought, I'm never doing that again. And I wasn't never doing the drug again. I was never going to come down again from it. So I had every intention of still smoking it. But I just thought if I leveled it and worked it out so that I didn't have to come down like I didn't do with cocaine. People just go, oh, you must have heavy come down. Never had a come down. I was always on it. Do you get what I mean? As I say to people, when I used and abused drugs for 28 years, and there was never a point where I wasn't on drugs for 28 years. I was on some form of drug, even when I slept, and I knew that, the last 5 years, I would sleep when I finally went to sleep, I would sleep in the recovery position because I was that scared that I was going to choke on my own vomit every night. It's so bizarre, so awful.
So that's getting us towards 27 now, 27, 28, I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's when you said it really started to turn into a spiral out of control.
Well, the crystal meth didn't come until a lot later. Okay, so the crystal meth was at the end of my drug using. About 27, 28, that kind of was like, we'd gone through ecstasy, we'd gone back onto cocaine. I'd moved to New York. I'd moved back from New York. I lived in New York for a year, thinking that, okay, because ecstasy was really good at that point in time in New York. So I thought, I'm going to stay there, and just thought, stay there.
Traveling around the world on an international drugs tour.
Totally, 100%. Because I could earn the money that I was getting. I could command that money for those audiences. So, yeah, kind of like it kind of just gone from partying. The party just didn't stop. It kind of went from party to 3-day binges, 4-day binges, and then the psychosis started, and kind of like I started to lose the plot a little, and kind of would reel it back in and just think, I can't do this. And I would end up in really dark situations and end up in places that no human being should ever end up. And I kind of just used to think, okay, I've got a real problem. This is a problem. So what I would do was just change dealer, or I would change the situation. I would change the scenario. I would change circles of friends.
So it's a proxy. It's a proxy for making progress, isn't it? It's an analogy, an analogous situation that works side by side with what could be moving forward, but it's not. It's just different.
Yeah, it's different. I used to call it hoovering out the Hoover. Because it's like you stick the nozzle of the Hoover into the Hoover bag, and all that's going around is the same old shit being regurgitated constantly. But you feel that you're doing something about it. I'm actually cleaning.
People do that in all sorts of ways, right? You know, perfect example. Let's go to another area that I touch on a lot, which is productivity. A lot of people will talk about how they've got this new nootropic, or I've really worked out my morning caffeine timing, and I'm like, dude, you work with your phone on your desk next to your laptop. Like you're sweating the small stuff. To talk about psychosis,
I'm microdosing.
Yeah, bro. You've got Twitter open on your laptop. That is not where you're doing your work. I got a little story for you about Christoph. He supports Eric Prydz at the moment. He's DJ from the north of England. I've known him for 10 years. Phenomenal guy. And I had him on the podcast. And he was telling us about a story about when he was at the back end of his world tour, and he'd been on tour, I think, for around about 6 weeks. And he went to bed in a hotel on the Thursday night, South America somewhere. Yeah. And he remembers looking at his calendar and thinking, the next time that I get a bed, proper bed, is like Tuesday. It's Thursday. And he's got a gig, goes straight from the gig to the airport, get on the plane, get a couple of hours sleep, do all this sort of stuff. So that finishes up at the end of a long tour where he's kind of real intense, and he doesn't have a tour manager either, which is an interesting one for him. So he plays this big show, has this big high, has all this energy, goes back to the hotel. It's him and room service on his own in a dark room, right? So he's got this incredible crescendos of up and down. And then he gets back to Newcastle, gets into his house, and essentially enters a state of psychosis that's from everything that's happened over the last 6 weeks. And anyway, it's a morning time, about 5 a.m, 6 a.m, and he comes to, and he describes this situation. He'd been watching like QVC, late night TV, because that's the only thing that's on at 5 a.m. And he realized that his hair was shit. So he went to Asda, and he comes to find himself sat on the floor of the toiletries aisle in Asda, and he's got one of every hair product out on the floor, and he's just taking a little bit and slapping it on his head, and taking a little bit of this wax and slapping it on his head, and taking a bit of this gel and slapping it on his head. And he comes to, and he's like, what am I doing here? Not too sure. Stands up, gets a floret of broccoli, 48 dishwasher tablets, and just walks out. And he was like, and at that moment, I thought, do you know, I probably could do with speaking to somebody. Like, fucking hell. And that's just from sleep debt.
Yeah. I mean, I used to stay up for 4 or 5 days, and I would be out. And I remember there was this one time I was in Liverpool Street Station, train station, and I was with all my friends. I was like talking to people, and then they were morphing into the wall. And I was like running after people going, oh, did you see my mate? And literally I was on my own. I don't know how I got there. I lived like in Brick Lane at that point. It's a Liverpool Street Station. Obviously I travelled there to go home, and I was like talking to people, and then cars would pull up, and I was trying to get in cars, and the cars weren't really there. It was insane, and it went on and on and on. I managed to get home. And I remember being in my flat, and I remember my boyfriend saying to me, Tony, you do realise these people aren't here? And I'm like, what are you on about? I'm in the bed. I was in the living room having a party with like 8 or 9 of my friends, all dancing and literally having a party. They weren't there. And I remember eating soup on the bed, and like, he was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm eating. And he was like, Tony, you realise this isn't real? And he called an ambulance, and the ambulance come, and they were going to section me. And they took me to the hospital, and they did all this. And luckily, it's because I hadn't slept. I'd gone into this state. My brain had completely gone. But it was at that moment, that the 2 days afterwards, I realised how people get committed and how they get sectioned, where their minds go. My mind had gone. I'd lost my mind. And people were like, I was talking to people, and they were like literally morphing into car seats. Fucking mental. Oh. And that was from being awake all that time and taking so much cocaine that my brain couldn't go. My brain started, and that was kind of at those turning points of where life had suddenly got a lot darker, because, you know, I was losing it. I was losing the plot.
Even the most balanced among us, I think, are only 5 days of no sleep away from being completely insanity. Mental, from being that hobo on the street that shouts words and has poo on the back of his shoe. Like 100%. That, all of us are. And the thin line of sanity that all of us are kind of wobbling on, right? You're only a couple of travesties in your life away from something sending you down a spiral. And the problem that I feel so much like sympathy for that particular area of your career, because had you have had little breaks, had it have been like 5 years on, 1 year off, 5 years on, 1 year off, during that 1 year, you could have done some work, built up some resilience, started to do the introspection that you required to be able to.
But you know what? But Chris, if I'd had a year off and I went back into what I was doing, I would have died.
Why?
Because my body wouldn't have been able to take what I was doing again. Do you know what I mean? It's like literally, my body had got so accustomed to what I was putting in it that it kind of built up a resilience. My liver, my kidneys, and everything, kind of become dependent on what I was doing. When you stop doing that stuff and you take time out, and addiction isn't something that you can switch off and switch on in that sense. So if I say I got clean and I have a relapse, that relapse won't suddenly go back to 1 glass of wine and 1 line. It will go straight back to 6 grams of coke and smoking crystal meth all night, where I left off. My body won't be able to take that. So my body will go into shock and shut down. And what happens is the organs start to shut down and the brain goes. That's what happens. It's what kills so many people. Let's look at Amy Winehouse. Her body couldn't take it. She started drinking again. And that's what happens. People really underestimate the power of what alcohol and other drugs do to the body. Do you get what I mean? And so taking time out was never an option anyway.
And surprisingly, actually, was one of the best, safest things that you could have done was not taking a break. Yeah,
totally, 100%.
That's interesting.
And I used to call it chemical scaffolding. It was what kept me, because people were like, how come you're still up, still awake, still alive? It's like, it's chemical scaffolding, of course.
You got these structures, right, that aren't 100%. Part of you, but that you're relying 100%. On. Yeah, I totally get that. So before we move on to kind of recovery and the rest of this stuff, I wanted to ask what was one of the heaviest parties that you can remember going to? Might be the heaviest or just one that comes to mind?
I kind of think every weekend when we did trade, I used to be resident at a club called Trade, which was at Turnmills. It's a legendary club. And Trade was like a club, one of the first places in the country that opened at 3 a.m. and went on till midday. And it was... you probably would have got that there, Chris.
Proper Berghain style stuff. Yeah.
It was. Listen, Berghain had nothing on Trade. Trust me. Trade was like the mecca. It had like an alley called Muscle Alley, where the Muscle Marys hung out. You had a heavy techno room with Tony DeVitt and all those guys. We did Trade like they had archways where you would queue up to buy your drugs, like proper dealer shops. It was insane. And Trade was like, it was groundbreaking. It was revolutionary. It was like the place to go. So every weekend kind of would be the heaviest party.
And was that you? Were you playing there or just out?
Yeah,
there?
I was resident there. Yeah,
got you.
I had my own room called Trade Light, and I would, that's kind of where the Disco Jesus thing came from, because we could turn 7 records into a 12-hour set. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, but it was insane, So I mean, there was so many, and then I would leave there and go on all day Sunday, all night Sunday, to go to DPM, and then all day Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So every weekend was kind of like that. And then after that, there were other clubs that we started called Orange and Fire in London. We started all of those venues. They all come from my desire to take drugs, and my friends' desire to take drugs. We couldn't stop. So we would create these after-hour parties.
Speaking as someone who's been in the industry for a long time, and a lot of the people that are in it as well listening might get this sense, there's a lot of the things that you're talking about here that we now in the industry nowadays are trying to recreate, but it's like it's the kiddies version, it's the nerfed version, right? So you were talking about the party, the late night drinking club that's open 24 hours, and then the police come and they shut it down, and then everyone kind of runs around the corner and then they come back. Like there is secret parties that get done now, but all that happens is you get issued it via text message at 7 p.m. on the night, and that's
rave culture. That's rave culture. We did that in the Acid House days. But you'd go to a phone box and have to call a number, and they'd tell you what field to go to. Okay, you've got to go 40 miles from here, right? When you get there, go to another phone box, and it was like. It was like being in Scooby fucking Doo. It was like trying to get to that phone box to find a field, and then you'd get there. You'd be in a field for 2 hours. The police would come and raid it. 40,000 people would be sent home, and that's kind of what it is. That's rave culture. People long for that today.
Yeah,
people long for the thrill of that today.
Well, you look at this now, and like I say, you have these sorts of parties, but it's the tickets fucking sold through Fat Soma or Ticket Web or fucking Ticket Arena, right? Like it's not underground. It's
right.
It's people trying to recreate that sense of the golden era, right? And it's kind of, I know that it's tragic and
ask those people that are trying to create that to name 4 of the tracks from that time that they're trying to recreate, and the artist's name, and I guarantee you they don't know them. You know, they read about rave culture, they dream about rave culture. You know, there's something really amazing. You know, at the moment with this lockdown and the way we all put in our houses, something really creative and magical is going to come from this. Really creative and magical, because you know it's times like this that stuff starts to grow, our juices flow in our brains, and we think, I've got a really good idea, let's do this. And you know, some really amazing stuff's going to come from this.
I saw Jackie Morn, who's one of my good buddies, just been out with Roger Sanchez in Ibiza producing, and they're producing tracks at 130 BPM because
they can fuck off.
Yeah, okay. I'll pass that on. I'll pass that on to him. But you know, in 6 months, 12 months time, there is going to be some ridiculous EPs. There's going to be some amazing books. There is.
You know, there's going to be, you know, all of that stuff's coming. You know, what's pissing me off the most about this is when I keep hearing these idiots. You know, I'm not going in saying any names, but there's certain DJs setting up petitions to say we should have a 7-day party, and it's like, fuck off, man. Do you understand that nightclubs and pubs are going to be the lowest of the lowest, right down there on
after gyms, after cafes, after restaurants.
It's all got schools and colleges and factories are going to come first. It's going to be a slow turner. We ain't going to see a nightclub open this year. No way will we see open a nightclub of Ministry of Sound or any of those big clubs. They're not going to open until October, November, December. No way. This is not going to go away. It's like Italy and all these places. No club's going to open in Italy until there's a vaccine. They've already said it. You know, why would they go down, get it under wraps and say, okay, you can go out partying again. I know, you can go back to the gym and start spreading this again. It's not going to happen. Use your head. There isn't going to be no big VJ celebrations. There's not. What's going to happen is other avenues are going to come out of it. And it's not going to be live streaming from your bedroom, but it's going to be other avenues. Did you get what I'm saying to you?
Did you see the Defected Live
yes,
Festival?
I did.
Now that is a shit hot way to do it. I know everyone's doing live streams. A lot of DJs are. Yeah. You know, it's getting a bit old now, but
I did one the other week for the Evening Standard. I did one last week for Harvey Nichols, live from my garden. And this Friday, I'm doing a massive one, which is going to get released tomorrow. Oh. I'm doing Victoria Beckham's birthday party for the NHS,
virtual birthday party.
Yeah, it's her birthday. She wants to invite all the key workers in the NHS to her birthday party by my garden. So I'm DJing for 2 hours set, playing all of her favourite tracks, live from our garden for the NHS, and people can donate, and they can also download the next day. They can download the playlist, and they can also download the set, and all the money goes to the NHS and key workers. Class. So that's this Friday, and that's going to go out just from her Instagram feed alone to 28 million. Then from David B's, I think he's got something like 100. Yeah, so it's going to go out. It's going to go out by his.
If they get the kids involved as well, I think the kids have probably got a 20 mil.
They're all going to be involved because they're all calling in to ask for tracks. So the whole thing is just going to level up and level up and level up.
That's amazing.
So we've been working on it for a week. So they're going to release it tomorrow, which is Tuesday. The evidence. They're going to release the press release. It's going to go out tomorrow. So I'm really excited about that. I kind of just think, and then I'm doing a one for British Vogue, and that's it. I'm kind of just like, you know, this is my job. This is my career. I'm not a bedroom DJ. Do you know what I mean?
Right now, everyone's a bedroom. Well, you're a garden DJ.
I am a garden DJ, yeah. But you know what? It's fine because that's my career. I'm not DJing to 42 people on a live feed that most people do. Do you get what I mean? This is Taylor.
So for the people that are just listening, there is a very, very nice doggo that's just been brought into the middle of the screen. I'm sorry, sir. You don't understand my love for dogs, and now I'm not going to be able to focus on anything except
Taylor's amazing.
Except for Taylor.
Taylor's 14.
Wow.
And She's the saviour of all life. She's the best thing in the world. She has such an amazing spirit, and she's like, everyone says that about their dogs. But trust me, Taylor has this magic about her. She's amazing.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing her during the live stream. The best thing that I've seen, avid listeners will know what I'm about to say. Best thing I've seen so far in lockdown is my friend David Coverdale, who was supposed to be going away on a stag do to Istanbul, and his missus organised a virtual stag do where he had all of his friends on Skype video call, and he got dressed up. He had the inflatable hat, and they were drinking, and they did the full night that was a virtual stag do. And I was like, that's fucking sick. Before we get on to...
But that's it, Chris. It's all about creativity. And it's about, you know what, we make the best of what we got. And it's about, I think what people are forgetting in this whole lockdown is like, I can't go out, I can't, I've lost 50 quid from not doing that job. Look at what you have got instead of what you haven't got. And you know what? People are moaning about being locked indoors. You're not locked indoors. You're at home safe. That's the difference. Do you get what I mean? It's not about being like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. Just breathe, man. This is a magical time.
It's highlighted to me the people that have a growth mindset and the people that don't. And the people that have that growth mindset, I'm seeing flourishing in this situation, and the people that don't, I'm seeing stagnating and even regressing.
100%. You know, it's fucking awful time. You know, I lost one of my best friends this morning. My friend Debbie, she passed away this morning from this, and her mum passed away on last Sunday. So her sister Jane, who I grew up with, has lost not only a mum but lost a sister in a week from this virus. And then you got these idiots saying, oh, you know, it's not real, it's not happening, and the blah blah blah. It's just like, you know what? Fuck off.
Don't get me started on David Icke and London Real.
Please. So many of them. There's so many of these dickheads, and it's just like, you know what? You tell that to the key workers. You tell that to the people that are not being able to say goodbye to their own mums and sisters. Yeah. You know, it's heartbreaking. It really is. It's just, you know, and people. The sad thing is, people are buying into it. It's like, what the fuck?
So there's this thing called compensatory control, right? It's a psychological effect. In times of great uncertainty, people will turn to more spurious or more narrative-based solutions. So, for instance, someone that's given an uncertain medical diagnosis is more likely to see patterns in meaningless static on a TV. Yeah. And the reason is that we would much sooner believe that the virus is going around because of the plan of some malign scientists or the transhumanist lizard people, whatever it might be, rather than just chance mutation. And that leads us to want to create these crazy conspiracies because it gives us a semblance. It personifies the virus as at the behest of someone. Someone chose this to happen, not just that it's fucking random chance, you know?
Yeah, of course.
I want to ask, if you were to go back, you might not even be able to remember this. If you were to go back and go across most of the big bits of your DJing career and you needed to absolutely take the roof off with a track, what are some of the tracks that you would drop from back then?
Oh,
Just like asking you to choose one of your favourite children.
It's what it is what it's like, you know, when you ask someone what their favourite tracks are, and you know, straight away, that person stops to think, because they think, if I say this, it's going to sound like I'm cheesy. If I say that, you know, there's tracks throughout my career that, you know, at the right time and the right place, you will take any roof off. You know, all the classics, Robin S., who I love, you know, Alison Limerick, all of that stuff that I grew up with, that people think is cheese now, are major tracks. You know, Someday, CeCe Rogers, In the Right Place. There's so many amazing electric tracks of every era, of every decade, that I just like go back to. You know, that's what's I'm so blessed with. So many of my sets that I play these days, especially for fashion. So I'm in-house DJ now for Versace. So when I do that stuff for Donatella, she wants all the old classics. So I can reel that stuff out. I had the most amazing time. You know, I could not pinpoint one track and say to you, that's it, because there's so many. Mm-hmm. There's so many. Do you get what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's kind of just like, you know, I have my own personal favourites that I are that tracks that mean so much to me. Do you get what I mean? that I wouldn't play out because I get too emotional.
Oh wow, yeah. I think Christoph Cozzi that I mentioned earlier on, I think he's got a couple of those where he sometimes struggles to drop them because he gets too emotionally involved. Also, I'm going to put it out there.
You know, it's the biggest drug. Music is the best and biggest drug I've ever taken. It has the ability to transport you to anywhere in the world and to be with people that are no longer with us. You close your eyes and you play that track, they're there. And that's the magic of music. And you know, when I'm DJing, and I get one of those sets where I can take people on a journey, it always ends in tears. Always. You know, because I will play a track and I just think, you know, like Frankie Knuckles' Tears. I mean, come on. You know, who can't lose it to something like that? Or Barry White, Ecstasy by Barry White. It's just like, you know, those certain tracks can take me back to that mud-ridden field that I first heard them in. You know, the Sounds of Blackness, the Pressure will take me straight back to the Sound Factory with Frankie Knuckles when the first time he ever played it. You know, there's so many things that I have so much euphoric recall around so many different tracks because I lived those tracks. It's not. No one introduced me to them. I discovered them with a lot of other people at the right time, and you know that's the beauty of it.
It's because it's more than the music, right? When you hear a track, and the people that are listening will know the old tracks. I think this is why we have particular nostalgia and why.
So I just stop you there. Yeah. They're not old tracks, Chris.
You know what I mean?
Music doesn't get old.
No, my point is tracks that
people get old. People's thinking you know what? Music doesn't get old. Music's timeless. The perfect track is timeless. It's not something that you go, oh, that's a really old track, or it's not old. Music's timeless.
Let me reframe. Tracks that have been with you for a significant duration of time. Tracks that have been with you for years. Because what you get, well, the first time that you hear a track, you hear the music and you hear the sounds and you get the emotional effect. But as you hear that track more and more, and you're experiencing something while that track is playing, that track, when it then gets played, is more than the music. It's the compounding of every experience and every time that you have heard that track. Cool. So, Teenage Crimes, the Axwell remode of that, was my first season in Ibiza, 2010. Yeah. And it's got that really haunting, beautiful kind of vocal.
How old are you?
I'm 32.
32, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Carry on.
I remember that because that was the year 2010 was like peak Swedish House Mafia. You know, it was when Big Room House was kind of all around. Yeah. And that track, man, like someone can drop that track. Someone can drop Eric Prydz Opus and I'll lose my shit. That big swell, that big sort of 10-minute thing.
Because it's stored back here. That feeling and that emotion's here. It's not here. This is stupid thinking. It's here. This is the part of our brain that wants to be loved. It wants us to be hugged. It wants us to have that feeling of euphoric recall from our first ecstasy we ever took. It wants all of that stuff. And that's where it's stored. And those memories are stored here. And as soon as you play that track, and you go straight back to that point. Do you get what I mean? It doesn't get better than that. It doesn't get better.
It is, you know, and that's one of the reasons why.
But we spend our lifetimes chasing that.
You do.
We do. And, you know.
Did you ever do Ibiza?
Did I do Ibiza? Of course I did Ibiza.
You did mention it in the thing and you haven't mentioned it today. Talk to me about Ibiza. You know what?
I did Ibiza in 89, 90, 91, 92, 93. I used to play at Amnesia. My best friends owned it. Sandrine and Jose owned it. And this is before it had a roof. And I used to go over and I used to play with Alfredo. I first went to Ibiza. I first played in Ibiza in 85 at Coup, then, which is now called Privilege, for a guy called Basilio. I spent a whole summer out there. Yeah, I've always played Ibiza. I was there last year doing Glitterbox. I'm there this summer doing Glitterbox.
Amazing.
If it happens. You know, for me, the island has so many memories. You know, there's some amazing hidden films going around at the moment. There's one on YouTube where I'm interviewing Andy Weverell in 1989 at Privilege at Coup. No, it was at Amnesia. And me and Andy are talking. And I went over for the whole summer with a film crew. And me, Danny Rampling, and all that lot, we're all living in the same. We were all staying in the same villa, and I interviewed everyone. We filmed the whole island, and then the guy that did the films, I don't know what happened to him. He just disappeared with the films, and they've just started resurfacing now. There's one on YouTube at the moment, the Andy Webberell one.
What can people search? What should people search if they?
Fat Tony Andy Webberell comes up 1989, Amnesia. But there's like there's about a whole week's worth of film footage floating around. I would love to get, I know not last year, the year before, they were showing them at Pikes.
Yeah.
So I want to find out who's got them.
Someone does. Someone does somewhere. But, okay, so I want to talk about recovery now.
Yeah, go on.
You're living this life in deep. Kind of, it sounds like there's been some experiences that have been in stark contrast to the fun that maybe sort of teens into 20s into early 20s, and then it starts to become, from you said, use to abuse. Yeah. Is there an inflection point with this? Is it the meth on the bridge, or is it something else, or is it gradual compounding over time?
It just built and built and built and built. And what happens is with addiction, it strips away and it chisels away at your self-worth, at your self-esteem. It leaves you with nothing. And it left me rocking backwards and forwards in a room, wanting to kill myself. I lost everything. I lost my teeth. I pulled all my own teeth out on crystal meth. I went insane. And what happened was, at the end, there was a God-given moment one evening. I was in a club called The Cross, rocking backwards and forwards as I did. And my partner at the time came in. And, he never came to that club. And it was a Friday night, and I'd already been out for 2 nights, and I just thought, I can't cope. It always makes me want to cry, because, it was that God-given moment that changed everything. And it was from that night I then decided I couldn't go on, because, I didn't think about where I was going to be next week or what was coming in, going on a holiday. All I thought about was my funeral. I thought about who was going to be at my funeral, what songs were going to be played at my funeral. And that was all I had to look forward to, was dying. And then suddenly I decided that I didn't want to die. And I got help, and I went away to treatment. I went away to rehab for 6 months. And I came forward to London, because, when you're in treatment, they say you can't go back to DJing. You can't go back to that life. You can't go back to that boyfriend, And I was like, well, I'm not going back to anything. I'm going forward to it. And I kept that momentum going. And I'm now 13 years, 4 months clean. I had nothing when I came into treatment. When I went to, at the end of my using, I had 1 pair of trainers and 1 tooth left. And today I have everything. Today I have freedom. I have an amazing house. I have, I've gifts beyond my wildest dreams. I have freedom. I can do whatever I want in life. I can't at the moment because I'm on lockdown. But,
right now, you're on Modern Wisdom podcast, which is obviously exactly what you want to be doing.
But I can do. But I had the freedom to do what I want, because I'm not chained to anything.
I've just realised, based on your timeline of recovery, you've had your dog Taylor since before you were clean.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. So Taylor was a guilt present for being out for 4 or 5 days, and I got Taylor as a present from my then partner. And I remember getting her, and I had another dog called Reggie before that, and we wanted another dog for Taylor to keep him company, and we got Taylor, and then I got clean, and Taylor got pregnant while I was in rehab. She got raped by the other dog. And so basically Taylor's been through everything with me. That's what I'm saying to you. She has this spirituality about her that just is incredible.
There she is.
She's she knows every emotion. She knows every feeling. She's one of a kind. And so she's one of the joys of the recovery. She really is.
Do you think it's possible to do the DJing life as a young guy and do it in a well-balanced way? Because I know.
Yeah, I do.
How do you do that? There's some DJs listening who maybe think I'm in an industry of excess. I get stuff for free. DJs get paid well. Some of them too well.
I just think that if you this is your chosen job and this is your career, you look at it as your career. You don't look at it as a party. If you look at this, if you're in this because you want to party, then don't bother. You're going to burn yourself out. It's going to end in tears. You look at this as a career and you have a passion for music and you have a love for music and you want people to understand your passion then do it for the right reasons. And you can do it constructively as long as you're creative and forever moving forward and not standing in one place or being in the jam jar with the lid screwed on and going around and round and round. Then you're not going anywhere. As long as you keep going somewhere, you can do this. You can do this. You know, you don't have to burn yourself out to do this for the love of a job. Because if you have, you know, the one thing that we all have in common is the love of music. You know, and I kind of think if this is your chosen career and you're gifted within that career of knowing how, you know, some people play music and some people make music, right? A DJ, you know, isn't about playing music. It's about reading a dance floor. It's about knowing your art form. You know, I see so many celebrities coming on going, suddenly I'm a DJ now. You're not a DJ. You're pressing play. There's a total difference. You know, a DJ knows how to warm up a room. It knows how to take you on a journey. That's the difference. And I mean, if you don't have to, as I said before, you're not the party. You're there to facilitate the party. That's the, you know, and if you stick to those rules, you can do this job without burning yourself out.
I think a lot of now the prevalence of increased competition amongst nightlife venues and social media, which is a specialist tool which needs to be used. I think there's a lot of promoters that might be listening who feel that they are the party. I've always made this analogy ever since I started, you know, like 13 years ago, that there's two types of club promoters. One of them are people who realize that they can make good money quickly from filling clubs and they have a capacity to it. And there's a second type that are people who love to party and they've realized, fucking hell, I can get paid to get pissed. And the
ones that get paid to get pissed don't have the party too long because they'll lose the party.
That's it, man.
That's the difference. And the ones that want to make money quickly aren't around for long either. You know, the ones with the biggest egos, they've got to remember there's going to be another 30,000 other people with the same size ego who are going to take their place. You know, it's a nightclub. Don't forget that. That's all it is a party. Do you get what I mean? You either do it well or fuck off. It's as simple as that.
Man, the problem is that people believe that it's this crazy transcendent experience, that all of this stuff's going on. They start to believe they're on hype, right? Especially you've got these people blowing smoke up your ass, you've got drugs and parties and girls and guys and all the rest of it that's all happening. But you're right, there is, and I've said this to every member of staff that's ever worked for us. There's the Chris speech, right? When they get promoted, they become one of our junior managers. And the Chris speech says, mate, no matter how far in we get, how long you stay with us, whether you become full-time or whatever it is, don't forget that it's people getting drunk in a room to music. And that's all it's ever going to be.
And you know what? You're the promoter of a party. You're not the one making the music. The music's the most important thing in there. Don't treat your DJs like they're a bunch of cunts. Do you get what I mean? They're the ones that are doing the job.
They treat us like cunts.
Yeah, but you know.
DJ dickheads. Okay, so final few things now. GQ said that you'd met Prince, Michael Jackson, and Jay-Z and were totally unimpressed by any of them.
No, that's bullshit.
Is that bullshit?
Prince, that's bullshit.
Fuck
GQ. Prince is one of the most amazing geniuses I've ever walked this earth. You know, how could you not be impressed by Prince?
That was my question.
How can you know, Jay-Z, couldn't give a shit about. You know, I met so many people from my career just to hang out with Andy Warhol. These people are geniuses. Do you know what I mean? How can you not be impressed by these people or what they do? They're masters of their art. You know, Prince isn't someone that went in the studio and got someone else to make his tracks for him. You know, that guy produced everything that he ever touched, played every instrument, did everything. How can you not be impressed by that? You know, no. So there's your answer. Of course I'm impressed.
Good man.
I was in awe of these people.
So what's next? What happens next?
What's next? There's a book. I'm writing a book. I have loads and loads and loads of mad offers all of a sudden for lots of TV stuff. I'm starting a new TV channel program. I'm doing a YouTube channel. I'm doing there's a lot of stuff coming up. But you know what? It's all creative and it's really, I'm not, you know, I've been asked to do a lot of silly things, which I say no to. I'm too long in the tooth for that rubbish. Do you know what I mean? But for me, the most important thing is happiness. As long as I'm happy doing what I'm doing, then it will work.
What is happiness to you now? What makes you happy?
Happiness is being at home with my partner, David, and being at home with Taylor, and being in the moment, not chasing looking for things that I don't have. It's knowing. Happiness is knowing that what I've got right now is enough. Do you get what I'm saying? And making do with, it's not about making do. That's the wrong thing to say. It's about making magic with what you have, and that's what it's about. And there's so many things that are coming. People could go say to me all the time, "Oh, the last 3 years your career's really took off," and it's like, no, it hasn't. It's like been the 13 years of sobriety and recovery that has enabled me to become the person who I was and who I am today. It's that person, and that comes from happiness. Yeah, I think, I'm going back in the studio. We've defected. There's loads of stuff coming up. There's some really amazing things that are in the pipeline.
That's so cool. Yeah. That's so cool.
I'm blessed, I'm blessed, and it's not about luck. Luck's winning the lottery. So, being blessed, I'm blessed in the sense that I got a second chance at life, and I'm not going to throw that away. And I think that every moment that we have is precious, especially today when you lose someone, when you lose people in your life, you just kind of reevaluate things. Because I don't need a drink or a drug to be an arsehole. I can do that very easily myself. But what happens is I have this part of my brain, the program that I work with in Narcotics Anonymous, which is how I stay clean. And sometimes it takes a while to kick in, and when it kicks in, it gives me that boot up the arse that I need to be. Your behaviours are off key, or the way you're treating people, the way you're treating yourself. It's about self-care. And as long as I'm looking after this, everything else falls into place. And so after lockdown, who knows?
Man, that's a beautiful message. What a lovely, lovely way to end it.
Thank you.
I'm really excited. I think, there's a lot of DJs and people in nightlife who need to hear this kind of message. I'm around guys who haven't gone to the extremes, perhaps, that you did.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend it. I know, people always say, "Oh, if there's a part of you that you could change, what would it be?" And I always just think none of it, because that's my journey. That's who I am. That shit I went through, that shit I created, all of that stuff that went before, it's kind of brought me to this point in my life. And I think if I changed any of that, then I wouldn't be where I am today, in the sense of I wouldn't have found what it was I was looking for all that time, without sounding like a really bad U2 song. But you know what? It's kind of it's a weird one. It really is, and yeah.
Life has an odd way of dropping serendipity on us a lot, doesn't it? There's some poetic irony that just keeps on looping around. When we showed the film at Selfridges, we did 6 nights of previews for the film, and each night we had to go and talk, and it was like a cute little Q&As, and the guys were like saying the film's not a story of pity, it's a story of redemption. And I kept thinking, why are they saying that? And what it really is a story of redemption, in the sense of, when you see the trailers for it, or they use like dramatic lines like, "I spent £1 million on drugs." They're not boasts. People go, "How can you boast about that?" Taking it out of context. They've used those lines just so it catches people's eyes. When you see the story, there's no boasting in it. That's not me boasting about spending that money. That's far from it. I'm not reveling in it. It destroyed my life. But what the boasting about? There is no boasting in it. Where it takes you to, I'm just blessed to be alive. And I'm very glad that you are. Really, really glad you are. I think the world's a brighter place because of it. So people want to find out more about you, keep up to date with what it is you got going on. Where should they go?
DJ Fat Tony on Instagram. There's a link on there to my YouTube channel. I'm on Instagram 24 hours a day. My partner really hates the fact that I'm on there that much. I'm kind of, it's an addiction. It's a healthy addiction. They're on my YouTube channel. Yeah, those are the 2 places you can always find me.
Amazing. Will be linked in the show notes below, of course. I recommend that you go and check it out because there are some fantastic memes. I don't think there's anyone putting out a higher velocity of memes than you are on Instagram at the moment.
You know what, though, Chris? I get so many messages every day of people saying to me, thank you, you're helping us get through this. Thank you for your sense of humour. You know, it's kind of like the messages that I get from certain people, you know, so many messages every day. I reply to every one of them because someone's taken the time to message me, so they deserve to get an answer. And then people are really shocked that you reply. That I reply, they're like, "Oh my God, I wasn't expecting you to reply." It's like, of course, why wouldn't I? Well, I messaged David Beckham and he doesn't reply. And I always say to David Beckham, you need to start replying to your messages.
Yeah, David, this is a you problem.
They're
David.
all jumping shit.
Why aren't you putting up more memes, David? Why isn't your music track selection for your missus's birthday better? And why aren't you replying to your DMs? That's what I want to know. Look, man, Tony, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to look forward to the book coming out and to following your YouTube channel. It's been brilliant. If you've enjoyed the episode, drop Tony a message, or you know where to find me at ChrisWellX on all social media. Like, share. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button. But for now, Tony, man, thank you.
God bless.